Good evening. Baruch Hashem. We're going to be learning another Kuntres that we were zeicha that the Rebbe gave us. A Kuntres of a Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab that was revealed after many, many years. In Tafshin Lamed Zayin, and later again in Tafshin Mem Dalet, Sefer Maimarim was printed, Taf Reish Ayin Ches, of Maimarim of the Rebbe Rashab. This was like, the Rebbe Rashab passed away, it was nostalgic, Taf Reish Pei. And this is 2 years before Taf Reish Ayin Ches. And he was then living in Rostov. And there was the Sefer Maimarim that was printed. There was one Maimer that was not there. Of course, it wasn't available. We didn't have it yet. And Hoidol Hashem ki tov ki l'olam chastoi, the Eibishter gave us the Maimer from Ksav Yad Kodesh of the Rebbe Rashab that became available in Tav Shin Nun Aleph, and then the Rebbe gave it out in the month of Cheshvan, actually Chaf Hey Cheshvan. Oil Chaf Hey Cheshvan, the Rebbe gave it out. This Maimer was said by the Rebbe Rashab on Shabbos, Parshas Lech Lecha. That year was Yud Aleph Cheshvan, Taf Reish Ayin Ches. It's 1917. The Maimer is based on a pasuk of Parshas Lech Lecha. The pasuk is in Kapitel Tesvav, pasuk Aleph. And the pasuk says like this. I'm going to first read the pasuk from the Chumash, and then we'll go into the Maimer. Achar advarim ha'ela, after these occurrences, these things, Hashem's word came to Avram in a vision, saying as follows: Al tira Avram, do not be afraid, Avram. Anochi Mugain Loch, I am your shield. Scharcha harbei ma'od, your schar, your reward, is very, very big. Rashi tells us, what is this talking about? So Rashi says that if you look at the parak before, Avraham Avinu had a big miracle happening to him. What was the miracle? He killed the 4 kings with their armies by miracle, by Nes, Min HaShamayim. And when he killed out these 4 mighty kings, when he got rid of these 4 mighty kings, as we take a look in the pasuk, there were kings that ran away, and there was a big, what did he do? He wiped out the bad kings, and then there were kings who ran away. It says, Vayinusu Melech Sodom va'Amora, the king of Sodom and Amora ran away, and the others ran to a mountain. So what happened now? There were 4 mighty kings that were the Chaim, and they made a fight against 5 kings, and Avram miraculously took care of them, got rid of these 4 mighty kings. Now, after he killed them out, and he was saved by a miracle, Rashi says, Hayodoyeg va'oimer. He was worried, and he said, Shema kibalti schar al kol tzidkusi. Maybe I already received all my reward for all my tzidkus, all my righteousness. Because Avram was living as such a tzaddik for so many years, and then this happened. He thinks maybe I used up all my credits. L'kacham elei amokaim al tira Avram. That's why Hashem said to him, don't worry, Avram, don't be afraid. Scharcha harbei ma'od. What you did was a good thing, and you have a great reward still awaiting you. Even though he killed out those people, so Rashi says, Anochi Mugain Loch, I will shield you mina einish from any punishment. Sheloi say onesh al kol oisan nefashos sharakta, that you will not be punished for all the people that you killed out in the war. So basically, what Rashi is telling us, that after the war, he was afraid that maybe he used up his credits and he has no more reward. And Hashem is saying, don't worry, I'll protect you. You did something good. You got rid of the Chaim, and you have a great reward waiting for you. Now let's look inside the Maimer. Anochi Mugain Loch, scharcha harbei ma'od. I am your shield, and your reward is very great. Now, apparently, this pasuk is saying two things. Number one, it's saying that I'm your shield. Another one, you have a great reward. And the Rebbe is asking, what's the connection between these two halves of the pasuk, or parts of the pasuk? What's the connection between Anochi Mugain Loch and Scharcha harbei ma'od? What's the connection between these two things? I'm your shield, that's one thing, and you have a great reward. Is there any kenmai shayachim or inyanim zeh lo zeh? Even though, according to Rashi, there is a sequence, but there must be some kind of connection between these two inyanim, at least in the way that Rebbe is going to explain in Pnimistic inyanim. So now the Rebbe is going to begin and explaining the whole idea of schar, of reward. What does it mean? We do a mitzvah and we get rewarded from Hashem olam haba. Like it says in Tanya, Yafa shah achas b'tshuva ma'asim tovim ba'olam hazeh mikol chay olam haba, says in Tanya that what is Pirkei Avos telling us? Olam haba, what do we get there? Reward for tshuva ma'asim tovim we do here. For every mitzvah, we're getting so much olam haba, so it's such a great reward. And the shaila is, why do we deserve a reward much larger than the efforts that we put into the mitzvah? That's what the Rebbe continues. Ikrim, in the Sefer, which is called Ikrim, it's one of the Sifrei Chakira from the Rishonim. Over there in Maimer Dalid, Perek Lamed Vav, it says as follows. The Alpi Shuras Adin, if you go according to the way the law demands, according to the way it should be, Hayatzarech Liyos, Schara Mitzvahs, Uschara Aveda, Schar Zmani. The schar that we get for doing mitzvahs and doing Aveda should be a temporary schar. Why are we getting Olam Haba in such a high way, which goes bli gvul? I know schar gvuli. We should only get a schar that's limited. That's what the Ikrim is asking. Why? Mipnei she'avodas ha'adam hi b'hagbala. The avodah of the person is b'hagbala. It's limited. So you invest a quarter, you should get back a quarter. Even if you get back 30 cents, but not bli gvul. So it should be a schar mugbal. And now the Rebbe is going to show us the next quite a few lines, showing us how all the mitzvahs we're doing is very limited. Limited in Zman, in Makim, in the way it's done. Let's look inside. Sharei mitzvahs mugvalim bisman u'makim. We know that mitzvahs are limited both in time and in place. Ukamai mitzvahs tefillin. When do we do the mitzvah of tefillin? By yom, loy balayla. We do it only by day and not by night, so it's limited. V'chein tzitzis. Likewise, mitzvah of tzitzis. Iker mitzvah si by yom. The main mitzvah, Iker mitzvah is by yom. When do we do the mitzvah of tzitzis? Mainly by day. The ksus laila potem min tzitzis. A garment that has 4 corners and it's only used by night is halachically potem min tzitzis. It's just we anyhow wear tzitzis at night, and that's for the Alter Rebbe writes, for example, that when you wake up in the morning, it's already daylight, so you should have been wearing tzitzis in the also by night, because when you wake up with tzitzis, there are a few things, few sgulos and special inyan to wear tzitzis also by night. As a matter of fact, there are many, many letters from the Rebbe where he talks about the importance of wearing tzitzis by night. Not only that, even for children. There are letters where the Rebbe wrote to parents who are having issues with their children sleeping peacefully by night, whether it was bad dreams or whatever. The Rebbe would say, make sure he's wearing kosher tzitzis. And this goes for even young children. So we see that the mitzvah of tzitzis is very, very holy. In fact, there's a letter where the Rebbe writes that because tzitzis reminds a yid of all the mitzvahs of Hashem, therefore, if we are mahader, we're careful, extra careful in the mitzvah of tzitzis, it's going to be reflected in all of our mitzvahs that we do. So we see that tzitzis is mainly by daytime, so it's limited. Although, menik chasidim and from Yidden, they sleep with tzitzis by night. But the main mitzvah, the time of the mitzvah is by yom. V'chein Shabbos. Shabbos is only on the 7th day of the week. It's limited to 1 day. Yom Tiv, you have Pesach, Sukkot, Shofar, Hakol Hu B'Zman Mugbal. Everything has a limited time when you do it. V'chein Mugbalim B'Makim. They're also limited in where the mitzvah is done. For example, Ukamei mitzvahs atluyas ba'aretz, Truma, Meiser, these things are only done in Eretz Yisrael, not in Chutz La'aretz. So again, it's a mitzvah that has limitations. Umitzvahs atluyas bebatim, there are certain mitzvahs that are only done at a house. For example, mezuzah, or Micah, putting a fence on your roof. Uchai Gavna. So we see that mitzvahs are very limited, both in Zman, when it's done, and in Makim, where it's done. Also, the way we do the mitzvahs, it's very limited. This tefillin has to be a square, which is 2 fingers by 2 fingers. That's the size. So it has to have a certain size. It can't just be a random size. All the mitzvahs are very limited in the way we do the mitzvah. So here the Rebbe brought 3 examples in the Zman when it's done, the place where it's done, and how it's done, that it's mugbal. And this is all building up this question, the question of the ikrim, that how come the schar that we're getting is not mugbal? It's much more. It should only be mugbal according to our investment. The Rebbe is going to continue on. Not only is there hagbala limits in the mitzvahs that we mentioned, which are actual mitzvahs, physical things we do, but even the chayvus halavaves, the duties of one's heart, to love Hashem, for example, k'may ava, v'yira, to fear Hashem, you'll say that maybe they're not mugbal. They're supposed to be all the time. So Rebbe says, hareim gam ken mugbalim. They're also limited. Where do we see the limitation? The vadzay shein gam ken mugbalim bisman. Besides the fact they're also limited in the amount of time that we're supposed to have avas Hashem or yiras Hashem. Shari ein tzarich li is tamid. A person doesn't have to be constantly be'ava, dainu bizgalus ha'ava chulu, to have the love of Hashem revealed in his heart 24/7. No, there's a certain time for it. Yesh mizman miyuchad al zeh. K'mo zman tefillah. Like when a person davens, then the ava comes out and it's revealed. So it's only during the time of davening. What happens later in the day? A residue, a leftover feeling of this ava will last through the day. While you're doing mitzvahs or busy with Torah. So we see that the ava, that the mitzvah of ava, which is chayvus halavaves, is also limited. So even the mitzvahs of chayvus halavaves, hinei etzem ha'ava, hi mugbelas chulu. The very ava, not only the time when we do it, the very idea of avas Hashem is also a very limited thing. Where do we find it? Right in the pasuk where it talks about avas Hashem. V'yahavtas Hashem alekecha, d'chsiv v'yahavta chulu, v'chol levavcha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol meidecha. It gives us 3 descriptions of when the ava takes place, or how the ava takes place. Number 1 is b'chol levavcha. The b'chol levavcha hu kama shahalev meichil chulu. How much can one's heart contain of avas Hashem? There's only so much it can contain. So that's a limit. It's not bli gvul ava. Number 2, uvechol nafshecha. What is that? Hu agdolas ha'ava. When you intensify this love, make it bigger, that it should spread from the heart throughout the person's body. Shemispashetes b'chol kayches hanefesh. That it spreads out through all the kayches of the person's nefesh. Gam she'enim kelim ela ahava. How can love reach the feet? The heart is the seat of emotions. So what does it mean that the love of the heart should spread out through the body? The halev hi keli el ahava. The heart is the keli for love. Ki mishkan hamidus hu b'leiv. The seat for midos, for feelings, is in the heart. Aval shari evarim ba'kayches. But the other limbs of the body and the kayches einam kelim el ava. So what if they're not kelim for ava? What is it that we just said that b'chol nafshecha means? To intensify and make it grow the ava, that it reaches also the limbs of your body. What does that mean? So the Rebbe explains, V'agdolas ha'ava hu, she'ha'ava mispashetes gam b'sharei keiches ve'varim. That it should indeed spread to the other keiches and the varim of the person. For example, u'kamoi, harotz le'devar mitzvah. when you pick up your feet and you run to do a mitzvah. Why is a person running to do the mitzvah? He can walk slowly, with laziness. He says, no. He says, oh, mitzvah. Because the mitzvah is so precious to him, that's why he's running to do it. Why is it so precious? Why is it so meaningful to him? Because he loves Hashem. Because he loves Hashem, and he knows this is how I'm going to connect to Hashem, that's why I want to do the mitzvah. So he runs to do it. And the Rebbe brings from Tanya, he brings from Perek Daled, it says, V'amakayim on v'ames. Who is the one who is makayim mitzvahs with an ames, a true kiyam mitzvahs? Who ha'ayev shem Hashem v'chafetz l'davka b'yichulhu. The one who loves Hashem and wants to cling to Hashem and connect to Hashem. Over there, the Alter Rebbe is talking about machshava, dibur, ma'isa, and the koiches of the nefesh. That when the person's nefesh has in itself 10 koiches, he has seichel and midos, and the seichel and the midos are supposed to infuse his machshava, dibur, and ma'isa with avas Hashem and yiras Hashem. Through his bainanos, the person contemplates with his moichin, will create the midos, avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, and that will spur him on to want to do the mitzvahs. And then when the mitzvahs have avas Hashem and yiras Hashem, that's truly kiyum mitzvahs. Kiyum mitzvahs is not when we do it just like mitzvahs Anochi Mugain, we do it by habit or by ritual. When we do it because of love, we love Hashem, or we refrain from Averis because we fear Hashem, that's true Kiyam HaMitzvahs. True, it could be my Kiyam HaMitzvahs like by rote, automatically. I remember I was once in a store putting on tefillin with the Yid, and I approached him. He put down a sandwich, and he put on tefillin. When he finished putting on the tefillin, another Yid came over to me. Maybe it was a Satmere or from another group. And he said, did you realize what that guy was doing right before the mitzvah he put on tefillin? He was eating a sandwich, and who knows if it was kosher. And even if it was kosher, you know, his taivas, and then he goes putting on tefillin. At the moment, I don't remember if I answered him, but right afterwards, after I registered what's going on, I realized that this guy was putting on tefillin better than I was putting on tefillin. Why? It says in Shulchan Aruch, now that Rabbi brings it in the Siddur, that when you put on tefillin, you have to have kavanah of shibud alev hamoyach. You have to, your brain, your mind, and your heart, you give it over to Hashem. You have a mind that I'm subjugating my mind and my heart to Hashem. That's why you put on tefillin on the head and on the arm near the heart. How many times do I think the right kavanah when I put on tefillin? Right before I say a bracha. I should. Did I do it that morning? Or I just put on the tefillin automatically? And the Alter Rebbe says, why? By Yidei, through doing so, it's going to weaken his taivas and make him realize about Hashem more. Now, this guy walked into the store with a sandwich, and I say, come put on tefillin. What does he do? He puts aside his taiva, his sandwich, and he puts on tefillin. For whom? For Hashem. He did really the mitzvah of tefillin. He was Mekayim Be'emes. Put away his taivas for Hashem. That's what the Alter Rebbe is saying in Tanya. Hamakaimon be'emes. Who's fulfilling the mitzvahs be'emes? When you have Avos Hashem and you want to connect. So this is the second level. There's Ava b'chol levavcha. You feel it in your heart, but it's limited. B'chol nafshecha, it goes through your body. You even run to a mitzvah. Umikol makayim, it's still limited. Harizegam kein rakma sha'koiches yecholim lizbelu lekabel. It's only how much your koiches can contain and receive, because person is limited. So how much Avos Hashem can you have already? Then comes the third step. You would think b'chol ma'idecha, which is usually touched, also bleak full. So over there it's limitless. So the Rebbe says va'af gam ha'avad b'chol ma'idecha shehi bleak full. When you say b'chol ma'idecha, it means extremely, exceedingly, which is bleak full. The Rebbe says, nevertheless, harihu gam kein bevechinas hagbala. Even this bleak full is still limited. What does that mean? It's a paradox. Is it bleak full or is it limited? It says bleak full, yeah, it's bleak full, but it also has hagbala. Which hagbala? Mishum deklalas ha'adam hu mugbal. Any human being is mugbal, and his kayches are mugbal. Begam abligvul shaloi hu bevechinas hagbala. Even his bleak vul is also limited. V'haraya she'eina b'shaveh b'kol adam. Bleak vul is not equal by each person. What for Reuven bleak vul can mean, he always learned 5 minutes and he's adding a 6th minute. That's going out of his hakbala. But for Shimon, who learns always 10 minutes, to learn 6 minutes is not bleak vul. The masha shebozeh hu bevichinas bleak vul. Harizeh bevichinas gvul be'acher shalamayli menu. Whatever if he is in a way of bleak vul in a certain thing, but for someone else, it's considered still gvul. Everyone knows how much tzedakah do they give? No one gives bleak vul. But if a person goes out of his akbalas and he gives much more, so someone who usually gives 10 cents and he gives 11, very nice. But for another person who usually gives 100, so that's still considered gvul. That's what he's saying. The masha bazeh hu bevichinas bleak vul. That which by him it's still bleak. It's bleak vul. Harizeh bevichinas gvul. Someone who's a higher level than him, it's still considered gvul. In any case, what he's saying is a b'chol ma'idecha is still gvul. It's limited. The zeh shekasuv b'chol ma'idecha v'lo ne'emar b'chol ma'id. This is why the pasuk says b'chol ma'idecha, your ma'id. It doesn't say b'chol ma'id, exceedingly. It says ma'idecha. What for you is considered gvul. Rak b'chol ma'idecha, haynu ma'id shelcha, she'etzlo hu bli gvul chulu. Nevertheless, because me'achar sheba'acher hu b'vchinas gvul, since by another person this is still considered, by him it's gvul, harei ein zeh b'chinas bli gvul be'etzem. Take a chassid and compare him to a simple person in the street. So a chassid learns so much more taita, which you might call bli gvul, agabe a simple person from the street. So when the simple person of the street takes a leap forward and learns bli gvul of his level, it's still far from real bli gvul, because you have a great chassid who learns much more than him. It's not mamish a bli gvul ki im be'etzem u b'chinas gvul. Even the ava that a person may generate in himself in the way of b'chol me'idecha, you should know it's still be'etzem, it's still a gvul. Rak she'etz lo yu b'chinas bli gvul. The only thing is, by him, it's still called, by it's in his level, it's bli gvul. So what do we see from here? We're getting what we're concluding from this, what the Rebbe is pointing out, that no matter what kind of avodah we're doing, everything is gvul. And it's not that Hashem is disappointed with us. Adarabah. Every step we take by the Eibishter, it's so precious. And every one more penny or one more minute that we're learning Torah, or one more act of Avos Yisrael, we shouldn't underestimate. That's the whole point. The Maimer is going to talk about that we get schar b'li gvul for efforts that have a gvul. The Rebbe Rashab goes into a lot of detail afterwards, which we're going to go to soon. What spurs a person onto Avos Hashem? And there are two levels of Ahava. There's one level of Ahava that we just talked about. When you're mizbainin, you're thinking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and His greatness, and you get turned on, and you want to serve Hashem better. But it took effort from your part, an investment of your isbainanus, and that brought about a certain level of Ava. But it's not yet the highest level of Ava. When we talk about the first level of Ava, which is through isbainanus, that goes by each person different. By each person, how much chassidus he learned, how much he understands the kalim of his understanding and how much effort he puts in. Then there's another level of Ava that doesn't come because of effort. It's like a gift. It comes to a person like by Eis Ratzon, like on Ne'ilah or Yom Kippur. When a person gets a big boost, enlightenment of Ava to Hashem, that level of Ava is equal by everyone. It doesn't go according to our level of Gvul or Bli Gvul. By everyone, it goes the same. Let's look inside. What we just spoke about, is always limited, even if by you it's extreme, it's meidecha, it's bli gvul, but it's still considered a gvul. So this is a kind of love that you reached through his bainanus. Okay, the ba'ava atzmius yesh beis madreges. In the ava atzmius, in a very essential love to Hashem, there are two levels. Ha'alef shabai deis bananus. Like I mentioned earlier, that it comes through the isbananus, that a person puts an effort in being mizbainin and elokus. Even though the resulting ava is at a very high level, etzem dika ava, mikol makaim ha'isayidus shalah ha'idei isbananus. The hisayidus is still through the hisbainanus behafla. It's because he's thinking about how special Hashem is, the hafla of elokus, and how exalted Hashem is. But again, it's his pa'ula, which is the siba of this love. And how much can his pa'ula be? limited. So that's why even a love, ava atzmius, is still limited. That's if it comes through the hisbonenus. But then there's another level of ahava, v'habeis, shemitzad is galus etzem aneshama, b'lishum is bonenus klal chulu. There's sometimes the neshama just gives a burst of light without any hisbonenus. Huam is gala bisman estratzen l'mayla. Sometimes it's pasha the estratzen l'mayla. When this becomes revealed, Ukmai Bereish Shana says Meitshuva Chulu. That brings such a great Gili Oir to the extent that this Oir causes that every person gets decided. Even a Yid, for a whole year doesn't come to Shul, he comes for Yom Kippur, he comes for Ne'ilah. He gets awakened, the Yechidish V'Nefesh gets awakened. Says the Rebbe, that when we're talking about the first level of love, that comes through hisbonenus, that varies and has different levels according to each person. But the second level of Hava, that the person gets Milmaila, that's by everyone equally. Hava Atzmius, Sheba al Yedei hisbonenus, that comes through our efforts. Yesh bazeh chilukim madregas. There are different levels. Mishum demashe bazeh l'mayla me'asaga, that which by him it's considered already l'mayla from his hasaga, from his grasping. In a b'neshama gevay, so it's bligvul. In a b'neshama gevay yaser u'b'v'chinas hasaga. By a neshama which is a higher level than him, it's in a level of hasaga, which is limited. This is all going back to one akuda to explain what the Ikrim is saying. That schara mitzvah l'cha'ira apparently should be only limited. It should be zmani. It should be temporary. It should be limited. Because our mitzvahs are all limited. Even Avos Hashem is also limited. This is all talking about the schar that we get. How do we come to this? Because when a person is serving Hashem with Avos Hashem and Yiras Hashem, especially if it comes through his beinanus, that brings him to such a high level. And that's what the Eibush is saying to Avram. Anochi Mugain Loch, Scharcha Harbei Ma'od. Very great schar. Mefarshim ask a very big question here. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Tshuva, I think, that the way to serve Hashem is l'shma, just for Hashem's sake. Not because I'm getting rewarded, not because of Elam Haba, not because of schar. And it brings a dogma, like Avraham Avinu. Avraham Oyavi. He served Hashem just out of love. It's not about me, it's only about Hashem, doing what Hashem wants. So how is this that suddenly Rashi tells us that Avraham was worried, maybe he used up all his credits and he has no more schar. Since when does he work for schar? I saw this question today in the Dvar Malchus, and the answer that they bring, I didn't see the makar where they're bringing it from, that Avraham had a different intention for schar. He felt that if Hashem gives him riches and health and all the good things, it's not because I want it. I want to make a Kiddush Hashem. People should see that those who serve Hashem faithfully, Hashem takes care of them. If he's going to walk around in rags, he's going to walk around like a poor person, will be like Chilul Hashem. That's how Hashem treats you. So it wasn't for his sake, it was to make a Kiddush Hashem. Because the truth is, A Yid should serve Hashem just for Hashem. As a matter of fact, there's a Sikha from the Rebbe in the Chelik Tesvav, Lukutei Sichas, where he brings the Maisa of the Rebbe Rashab in the Sikha Vayera Chav Cheshman. And he says that the Rebbe Rashab, when he was a little kid, there's the famous story that he came to the Tzemach Tzedek and was crying why Hashem revealed himself to Avram and not to us, or not to me. Which means, says the Rebbe, that we see that even a little child can be educated, that what does he cry about? Not that he's missing a bicycle, not that he's missing candies, but what? He's missing a Elokus. He has a yearning for Elokus. And the Rebbe says we can learn a lesson from this. Because if we look in the Sikha, where the Frierdiker Rebbe tells this story, it says that the Rebbe Rashab was 4 or 5 years old then. Which means even before the age of the official age of Chinuch. Which officially, according to Halacha, could be 5, 6. Why does he emphasize the age? To tell us that even a young child at such a young age can reach a level of wanting to serve Hashem, wanting Elokus. And the Rebbe says, even though the Rambam himself writes in Pirush HaMishnayos that the way to be mechanech children is through giving them treats. Read this line and I'll give you a peanut, I'll give you nuts, whatever. So the Ram says you have to give kids something they like. Devarim ha'ahuvim etzlai. Give them things that they like. So how does it fit with the Rebbe Rashab wanting Elokus? So the Rebbe says that until the time of the Rebbe Rashab, one can say that Devarim ha'ahuvim etzlai, what does a child love? Is candies, cookies, nuts, a bicycle, a prize. But ever since the Rebbe Rashab paved the way, that what does he want as a little child? He wants Elokus. We can educate children today also that they want Getlichkeit. Why does a kid want to learn Torah? Because he wants to learn Hashem's Torah. Not because he's going to get a candy. Not because he's going to get rewarded. And the Rebbe said that if there is a mechanech who's struggling with this, to get the kids to learn without tangible rewards, it means that the teacher is not speaking dvarim hayotzim min halev, because otherwise it will be nechnasim el halev. So the teacher has to convince himself that such a chinuch is possible. This is a sikha in Chelik Tesvav, it's Muga. Everyone could take a look and see it there. And I'm going to make a confession that for many years, as a teacher, I used to give prizes. But then I was pushed by my wife and by other mechanchim, try the Rebbe's way. You didn't even try it. And it didn't dawn upon me that it's really shaykh, even though the Rebbe says so. It's a confession. It's a chutzpah of me not to trust the Rebbe's words right away. So one year I decided I'm going to give it a try. And what I did, step by step, I took a little notepad on my desk, and from day one, I started off using different ideas how to present how precious the Torah is. And was telling the Kinderlach, imagine if I say to you, I'm going to give you $1 million, and you're going to say back to me that you're ready to accept it if I'll give you a piece of dust. Then you're going to accept it. Or I'm ready to give you $1 million. You'll say, I'll accept it if you give me a lollipop. And the kids laughed. They see how ridiculous it is. So I said, Torah is the best Chayra. And you tell them stories about it. So the best way to be mechanech kids is through stories and mashalim. Tell them many stories and bring out the entire kite of Torah, how precious it is. It's worth more than all the money in the world. So if I say to you, I'm going to teach you a pasuk chumash, and you're going to say to me, yeah, but what am I going to get for it? I'll say a lollipop. You should burst out laughing. And I worked on this slowly, al pidarkoi, day after day, until you won't believe. I didn't believe it. It came a day, and I said to the kids, we just finished learning Chumash. Now, I made this as a test. I said, Kinderlach, I want to give everyone a prize, a nash or something. You know what they said? We don't need it. I said, what would you like? Another pasuk. I was blown out of my mind. I couldn't believe it. I even brought the principal in to present them a prize if they say some chumash. And they said, no, we don't want a prize. We're learning for Hashem. I went through, but it took a lot of work, a lot of convincing from my part, convincing myself. And as soon as, I can't say I'm still convinced, but at least I pretended that Tzemach Tzedek says, fake it till you make it. Talks about Simcha. I mentioned it already once. I took notes of every day, the progress that happened, what I said, how I did, how I applied it. And I took all these notes at the end of the year, and I wrote up a long article, and it was later printed in Beis Mashiach and in the Neshe, how to approach it. I also have it on my website. My website is called chinuchtime.com. chinuchtime.com, and I have over there, you can click on the revolutionary approach of the Rebbe in Chinuch. So I brought practical tips of what I did and what worked. I worked on every single kid. I mentioned that there was one kid who was struggling with it, but eventually he got onto the wagon too. Why am I bringing this? Because this is the month of the Rebbe Rashab. We're learning a Maimer of the Rebbe Rashab. Chav Cheshvan is coming up. We have to know that we could be mechanech kinderlach to appreciate Torah for what Torah is. Appreciate doing a mitzvah for what a mitzvah is. Appreciate doing kibbud aveim just because it's a mitzvah. But again, it takes stories and stories and again stories. The Rebbe once spoke to the madrichos and said to them that when you tell kids, teach them a lesson in the form of a story, they're all listening. When you teach them a lesson, some kids get anxious. Will I understand it? Will I not understand it? But if you put it in the form of a story, they get it. So just to pile on more and more stories, there's a certain set of Sfarim that the Rebbe, stories Sfarim, that the Rebbe said, it's printed in the Igros, I want this set to be a member of every household. And that's a set of Talks and Tales. Kahas just reprinted it together with an index as a separate volume. It comes with it, where you can look up any subject and imbue the kinderlach with so much Yerushalayim. The Rebbe himself was Magia, the English section of Talks and Tales. I think the Yiddish section Rebbe Chadikov edited, but the English one, the Rebbe edited it. So it has very much value, and we can get so many stories from there, or from Sipurei Chassidim, or from, there's so many places we can get stories how to serve Hashem Lishma. And loy neflesi, loy nechaikehi, if it's given to us, it's put on our lap. In this generation, the Rebbe says a lashon. He says, Nishtanu ativim. The nature of children changed. And now we can be mechanech kindach without having to give prizes. It does not say that we shouldn't give any treats to kids. No, forget. We know by Malach Michael gives candies to the kid. He throws candies by the Arayim finish. The Rebbe says, Lashon, to give cheshek to the kid. So I, Taka, randomly would give the kids treats, whether chips, a candy or something, randomly, not connected as a cause and effect, as a result of the learning. Just here, kindalach. Here's a cookie, here's a nash. And the kids took to it. They're innocent. They don't have to pay the price of my Yetzirah. Now, if I want to work dafka for results, for rewards, I have to be mechanech kids to do it just for Hashem. Agresin Yashikoyach, to be continued, the Miyas Hashem, next week, Bezes Hashem.
This class was done in honor of Miriam Bas Ephraim Zev Sheyechia. Thank you for
be a big schus for Aliyas Hanashama, and because this is the month when the Eibishter promised is going to be the Chanukah Sabayis Hashlishi, we should have the Geula Shlema immediately and Tchias HaMesim. We'll have all of our loved ones here, Begashmis, Lamata, Me'asara Tfachim, and we'll continue learning the Maimer with them, Gesundheit and Freiligkeit. Sei gesund.